Alta? No, we're not. Getting in, we're in
We're
olive,
in
olive,
Gittin, yeah, Gittin,
yeah,
base
base
olive.
olive. If one brought a gift from overseas and said, brought a get from overseas and said it was written in my presence, but not, it was signed in my presence, or it was signed in my presence, but not, it was written in my presence, or for all of it was written in my presence, and half of it is signed in my presence, or half of it was written in my presence, and all of it was signed in my presence, it's void. If one says it was written in my presence and one says it was signed in my presence, it is void. If two say it was written in our presence and one says it was signed in my presence, it's void. If Yehuda validates it, if one says it was written in my presence and two say it was signed in our presence, it's valid. If it was written by day and signed by day, if it were written by night and signed by night, or written by night and signed by day, it is valid. If it was written by day and signed by night, it's void. Reb Shimon, however, validates it. For Reb Shimon used to say all documents which are written by day and signed by night are void except for Gittin. We write it with anything with ink, with orpiment, and with pigment, with gum, with ferrous sulfur, or with anything which is lasting. We do not write it with liquids, nor with fruit juice, nor with anything which is not lasting. We write upon it anything on a leaf of an olive tree, on the horn of a cow, and he gives her the cow, or the hand of the slave, and he gives her the slave. Rabbi Yossi the Galilean says we do not write it on a living creature nor on food.
So now I was looking at this Mishnah yesterday and thinking like, okay, so what they're coming to teach you with the leaf is it's got to be something that is written and before any other action has and it must be able to be handed over without any further action being taken. So writing it on the tree will not work. Writing
Mhm.
it on the cow and then cutting off the horn is also not good enough. So that's why he has to give her the whole cow. But I'm
Right.
looking at the slave and thinking, well, since we know that this mission is telling us that it has to be written with something permanent, we're not just talking about like writing, taking a ballpoint pen and writing it on the slave's arm. We're talking about a tattoo. It's an
Right.
interesting, which is an interesting thing over here because like it just struck me, and I haven't had time to confirm this. Like, what does it mean to be able to write it on the Evid? Because it's got to be something that's permanent.
Right.
Otherwise, the woman's divorced and now she's walking around and they ask her, "Oh, where's your get?" Said, "Well, it was on my slave, but his skin, grew over it, so she's gonna have to keep a tattoo." I don't know. It's a very weird situation. Also, the slave can die.
Right. Right.
So that's a very interesting thing, Tariq Ian. I may just do a little more research about that slave situation.
If he dies, then she really has no proof of anything.
Right,
Right?
right. Okay. Ein kosfin b'mechuber lakarka. You cannot write a get on something that is still attached to the ground. That's what I just said about the tree. So, for example, you can't scrape the get onto a branch of a tree, even if he wants to break off the branch afterwards. Kasavo b'mechubar. Um, so, by the way, there are two parts of the get. There's the um, there's the tofes, which is the boilerplate, and all Gittin look the same.
Right.
Blank spaces for the names and the dates
Right.
and the places. Okay, so that's the tofes, and then there's the torif, which is the salient details that make it personal. The toughest is, as we're going to learn today, is a very neutral kind of a thing. Anyone can write it anywhere, but the important part is the torif and the part that's signed when it's signed by the witnesses or witnessed by the witnesses who are seeing it being handed over. Okay, so Kasava Machuber. So let's say he wrote everything on a tree branch, but just the tofes. Tlasho v'chasamo unisanu la kasher. So he left open the important parts and then filled them in and then cut off the branch and filled them in later. Okay, that's fine. That is fine because the important parts are what we go after. The Torah is what we go after. But Rabbi Yehuda is posel ad shetahei kasiv so v'chasima so b'talish. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda's shita is that even the tofes has to be written in a kosher way. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer ein kosvin lo al niyar machok v'lo al the diftera mipnei shu yachol lizdayef. So, so another different Rabbi Yehuda, this Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, he says that the paper that you write on or the parchment that you write on cannot be crumpled paper. It cannot be paper that's been used before and had something erased, because now all the text looks like it's been erased, which makes it easy to forge. Because now, if you see something that's been erased and written and rewritten, um, you take a knife and scrape off the ink and write in something else in place. You can see it, but now it looks like in that, like, it's natural because it's on this old type of parchment. So you wouldn't necessarily notice that it's a forgery. Chachamim machshirin, the Chachamim say it doesn't matter because in any case the get is validated by the witnesses. You're
Hmm.
not so you're going to have whoever signed on it is going to be called for testimony to say that this is a valid get. Now, what happens if those people have died? Okay, that's already a secondary situation. But according to the Chachamim, you're in any case going to be relying on the witnesses. So we're not too worried about a forgery in here. The kind of forgery, by the way, that you'd be expecting is to see here is if the husband wrote a t'nai into the get, and the wife said, "Well, I don't really care about this t'nai," and she takes her blade and just scrapes away the al t'nai part and just says, "This is a full get." Okay. Um. Hey, hakol ksherin lichtov a get. Anyone can write the get. This being the tofes of the get. Okay, the boilerplate. Afilu cheresh shotev katan, even somebody who has no das. Ha'isha koseves is gita, and a woman can even write her own get, as long as her husband has commissioned her to write it. Va'ish koseves shovaro, and the man can write out his own receipt that he gets for paying out the kasuba. She'ein kiyum haget ela b'chosma. The whole point, the whole effectiveness of the get is by the people who signed it. In other words, the witnesses. Just having a get written out is nothing until witnesses have seen it being handed over and have thus signed on it. Okay. Hakol ksherin lahavi et haget. Anyone can be a shaliach to bring the get. Chutz micheresh shotev a katan suma v'nochri. So the cheresh shotev a katan, because they don't have das. The person who brings the get has to have das, that they are the shaliach of the get. A suma is disqualified. Why? Um, because he's not to bring it from Chutz La'aretz. Remember, we've been saying up until now that the shaliach has to be able to say b'fanai nichtav, b'fanai nichtam. It was written in front of me. It was signed in front of me. Summa is not going to be able to say that. The blind person. Okay, and a nochri, because a person cannot be a shaliach for something that they themselves are not obligated in. Okay, so being that a non-Jew is not chayav in mitzvahs, he's unable to be a kosher shaliach for somebody else's get. Mishnah Vav kibel hakatan v'higdil. Okay, what happens if somebody said, "Okay, there's a katan over here, but by the time he gets to my wife, he'll be bar mitzvah. So I'll give it to him to hand it over." Cherish, he gave it to the Cherish, and the Cherish became lucid again. So the Cherish, sorry, Nispatach, he was able to hear again. The Sum of a Nispatach, he gave it to the blind person who was then cured of his blindness. A short of an Ishtata, and the imbecile who then became lucid. Um, Nochri, he gave it to the non-Jew, and the non-Jew then converted. In all these cases, it's possible because it started out that he wasn't kosher, and the moment he took on the shlichus was already invalidated. Aval pikeach v'nischarash v'chaza v'nispakach. So it was given to him while he was intelligent. Um, I don't want to use the word intelligent. It's but somebody who is able to who's not a cherish, who's competent, and then he lost his faculties and chazar v'nispakach, and then it came back. He became a cherish, and then he was cured. Or a pitach v'nistama, he had his vision, and when he accepted the shlichus, he became temporarily blind, and then restored his vision. Okay, Shafoy, he was intelligent, and then he went temporarily insane, and then returned to his clarity. All of these cases are kasher because they accepted the shlichus in a state of kashrus, and completed their mission in a state of kashrus. Zaklal, your general rule is kol shetchilas of a sofa badas kasher. Right, obviously, we don't mention the bar mitzvah boy and the ger because there's only one direction for those. Okay. All right, back to Sota Perik Tes Aleph.
Yes. The passage regarding the decapitated calf must be recited on the holy tongue, as it is said, if a corpse should be found in the land. Your elders and your judges shall go out. 3 members of the high court in Jerusalem would go out. If Yehuda says 5, as it is said, your elders 2 and your judges another 2, and since the court cannot be even, they must add 1. If it was found buried in a heap or hanging from a tree or floating above the water, they would not decapitate a calf as it is said in the land, applying that it was not buried in a heap, fallen but not hanging from a tree, in the field, not floating upon the water. If it was found near the border or near a city of which the majority are non-Jews, or a city in which there is no court of law, they would not decapitate a calf. They would not measure except from the city in which there is a court of law. If we found equidistance from 2 cities, the 2 bring calves, these are the words of Rabbi Eliezer, and Jerusalem is a part of the site of the decapitated calf. If its head was found in one place and its body in another place, we bring the head to the body. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. The Akiva says the body is brought to the head.
Okay.
Okay.
Nazir.
Okay.
Okay. Vav.
Okay. Gimel Vav. If someone who declared a series of long duration and completed his term of Naziris and afterward came to the land of Israel, Beit Shammai says he was a Nazir for 30 days. Beit Hillel says he was a Nazir at first. It happened with Queen Helena that her son went to war, and she declared, if my son returns in peace from the war, shall be a Nazir for 7 years. My son returned from the war, and he was a Nazir for 7 years. At the end of 7 years, she went up to the land of Israel, and Beit Hillel ruled for her that she must be a Nazir for another 7 years. At the end of these 7 years, she became Tameh, and so it resulted that he was Nazir for 21 years. Rabbi Yehuda said she was Nazir for only 14 years. Someone about whom 2 sets of witnesses were testifying, these testified that they declared 2 terms of Naziris, and these testified that they declared 5 terms of Naziris. Beit Shammai said the testimony is split, and there is no Naziris here, but Beit Hillel says 2 is included in the 5, so that is a Nazir for 2 terms. Okay.
One more.
Someone who said, I'm a Nazir, and his friend heard and said, I, and they are all Nazirim. The first is released, they are all released. The last is released, the last is permitted, but all the others are bound. If he said, I am a Nazir, and his friend here heard and said, my mouth is like his mouth, my mouth is like his hair, my hair is like his hair, he is a Nazir. If he said, I'm a Nazir, and his wife heard and said, he may revoke her. But it stands that if she said, I am a Nazira, and her husband heard and said, he cannot revoke it. Okay.
Okay.
We have
Yevamos.
Yevama. Okay. Yud Aleph Vav. If a woman did not by 3 months after her divorce or in widowhood from her husband, but remarried and gave birth, or it is not known whether it was a 9-month child or a former husband or a 7-month child from the latter, if she also had other sons from the first and second husbands, these sons perform Kalisa but not Yibam. Similarly, he may perform Kalisa for them but not Yibam. If he had brothers by the first and second husbands, not through his mother, he may perform either Kalisa or Yibam, whereas they must perform Kalisa, after which the other one may perform Yibam. If one husband was a Yisrael and another and one husband was a Kohen, the children must marry a woman fit to marry a Kohen, and he may be contaminated himself with the dead. But if he contaminated himself, he does not incur 40 lashes. He may not eat truma, but if he ate, he is not required to pay the principal and the additional fifth. He does not receive a portion of the threshing floor, but he may sell truma and keep the proceeds. He does not receive a portion of the second temple objects, and but we do not give him sacred objects, but what is his is not taken from him. He is exempt from giving the upper foreleg, the jaws, and the stomach. The firstborn animal must be left to pasture until it becomes blemished, and both the stringencies which apply to Kohanim and those which apply to Yisraelim are imposed upon him. If both husbands were Kohanim, he must observe the laws of the Onan for them, and they for him. He may not contaminate himself uh, and them, nor would they with him. But he does not inherit from them, but he does inherit from him. He is not liable for striking or cursing either of them. He must go up with the watch of each, but he does not receive a portion. However, if he belongs to the second watch, he receives one portion. Okay.
One more.
One more?
Yeah.
All right. The commandment of Kalisa is performed before three judges, even if they're all laymen. She performed Kalisa with a leather shoe. A Kalisa is valid with a cloth shoe. It is not valid with a heeled sandal, and is valid with an unheeled sandal, but it's not valid below the knee. A Kalisa is valid above the knee. A Kalisa is not valid.
Okay.
Shabbos. Okay, Shabbos is, there we go.
Yeah.
Test Aleph. Said Rebbe Kiva, from where do we learn that an object of Ahadari transmits tumor contamination by carrying like a menstruant? For it is stated, cast them away like a menstruant. Go out, so you say to it, shall you say to it. Just as a menstruant transmits tumor contamination by carrying, so does an object of idolatry transmit tumor contamination by carrying. From where do we learn that a ship is not susceptible to tumor contamination? For it is stated, the way of a ship in the midst of the sea. From where do we learn that a garden bed that is 6 by 6 may be sown with 5 types of seeds, 4 on the sides of the garden, and one bed and one in the center? For it is stated, like the earth, it will give forth its plant, and like a garden, it will cause its seeds to grow. Its seed is not stated, but its seeds. From where do we learn that a woman may emit semen on the third day of stomach? For it is stated, be prepared for 3 days. From where do we learn that they may bathe a circumcised infant on the third day, even if it falls on Sabbath? For it is stated, they came to pass on the third day when they were in pain. From where do we learn that a strip of red wool is tied on the head of a goat that is sent out? For it is stated, if your sins will be like crimson, they will be white as snow. Okay.
Okay.
And we go on to, here we go, Taurus. Bet Zion. Eliezer says the three of them are equal. The Rishon over sacrificial things, Truma and Kulin conveys Truma to two, and disqualifies one with regard to sacrificial things. It conveys Truma to one and disqualifies with Truma, and it disqualifies Kulin. The shading of all of them conveys Truma to one and disqualifies one with sacrificial things. It conveys Truma to Kulin liquids and disqualifying Truma's foods. The shlishi of all of them conveys tumor of sacrificial liquids, and it disqualifies sacrificial foods. Someone who eats a shady food should not work on the oil press, and chulin foods that were not made to the standard of sacrificial foods. These were like chulin. If Eliezer Bar Yasadik says they are like truma, so convey truma to two and disqualify one. Gravy, beef stew, and milk, when they are liquid enough to moisten their beginning level of tuma. If they congeal, they are shanis. If they dissolved again and their size is exactly that of an egg's volume, they are tahor. If they consist of more than an egg's volume, they are tummy, for it is upon the first drop emerges, it is read to tummy by an egg's volume of food.
Okay. And menachos.
We have base hay. If he intended pickle with the comments, but not with the frankincense, or with the frankincense without the comments, Mebrei says it is pickle and one is liable to karas over it. But the sages say there is no karat unless it contains pickle with all that remedies it permissible. The sages occur with Mebrei concerning the sinner's mikvah offering and the jealousy mikvah offering, that if he intended pickle with the comments, or pickle and one is liable to karas over it, then the comments is that which is permissible. If he slaughtered one of the lambs intending to eat the two loaves tomorrow, for he burnt one of the shoes with the frankincense intending to eat the cow, eat the two. Two do not render sacrificial pickle. How so? If one slaughters the sacrificial intending to eat from it tomorrow, both of it and his libations become pigul. However, if he intended to offer the libations tomorrow, libations become pigul, but the sacrifice does not become pigul. If one intended pigul with the kummetz, but not with the frankincense, or with the frankincense and not with the kummetz, Rameya says it is pigul, and one is liable to karas over it. But the sages say there is no karas for it unless he intends pigul with all that renders it permissible. The sages concur with Rameya concerning the sin is mikvah offering and the jealousy mikvah offering, where he intended pigul with the komets and pigul, and one is liable to karas over it, since the komets is that which is permissible. If one slaughtered one of the lambs intending to eat the two loaves tomorrow, or if he burnt one of the spoonfuls of frankincense intending to eat the two arrangements tomorrow, Rameya says it is pigul, and one is liable to karas over it. But the sages say there is no pigul unless he intends pigul with all that renders it permissible. If he slaughtered one of the lambs intending to eat from it tomorrow, it is pigul, but compensation companion as his companion is valid. However, he intended to eat from the companion tomorrow. They are both valid. Okay, one more.
Two
If
more.
one performs Right, Gimel. If one performs mitzvah on a mincha offering, intending to eat something which is not meant to be eaten, or to burn upon the altar something which is not meant to be burnt, it is valid. But if Eliezer invalidates it, if his intent was to eat something which is meant to be eaten, or to burn upon the altar something which is meant to be burnt, but less than an olive vayim, it is valid. If his intent was to eat something half of an olive vayim and to burn half an olive vayim, it is valid, for eating and altar burning are not combined. Okay.
One more.
If he did not pour, or he did not mix, or he did not break nor the pieces, nor did he not salt, or he did not wave, or he did not bring near, or he broke them into large pieces, or he did not mount on them, they are valid. If the comments with the comments of another, and the mincha offering kohanim, or the mincha offering anoid kohen, or valid, Rabbi Yehuda says in the case of mincha offering of the anointed kohen and the mincha offering of libations, it is invalid because this one's mixture is thicker and this one's mixture is thinner, and they absorb from each other.
Okay.
I don't remember where I read this, but it was yesterday. I was reading something. It said something